Welcome to the Pastor Show. We're so glad you've chosen to join us today. It's August the 5th, 2020, and it's beautiful here in Florida. How's it doing in Texas, Noel?
Well, Mark, things are going well in Texas. It's a beautiful day, of course. This has been a pretty busy week. Everybody's sort of nose to the grindstone, getting ready for Sunday and some other ministry events. Children's ministry has some big events going on this week. Of course, we're just a couple of weeks away from our big schedule change and our relaunch of our summit service, our contemporary service. So things are pretty busy around here. Personally, things have been busy because my children are in town. My youngest daughter, of course, is always here. She's still in high school, but my middle daughter, she spent much of the summer on a long mission trip, but she came back this last weekend, is with us 1 week before she heads back off to college. And then my oldest daughter and a good friend of hers, they flew in Monday, and they're with us for a few days. They fly back out on Friday. So it's been good to have everybody around the house. It's a little louder than it normally is, but it's a lot of fun. So it's been a good week. Now, you mentioned Florida. I can tell by your video that you're in a different place. What's going on?
Yes. Yeah, so we came up to Florida, left after church on Sunday, and started our way here. Mary's family lives here. Her nanny has been sick for 21 months. She's been on hospice, which is so long. She surprises us every day, but just so thankful for this extra time that we didn't expect to have with her and with Mary's mom and sister. And so glad to be here, but we will be back Sunday. We can't wait to get back and get back into what's going on. How was last week? You made it. 25 years anniversary.
Well, we did. 25 years of marriage. 25 years of marriage. So we had a good time. As I may have shared last week, we went away for a couple of days. We went to Santa Ana, Texas. Don't know if you've ever been there before, Mark. It is right dab in the middle of the state of Texas. I was reminded driving out there just how gigantic the state of Texas is. That's just hard to get used to from somebody that is not originally from here. We drove over 5 hours from one part of Texas. We drove west, and we just made it in 5.5 hours to the middle of the state. What would it take to get all the way to New Mexico? I guess it'd take 3 years of driving. But we had a good time. Where we were was just absolute rural paradise. It was nothing to do, but we spent time together. We swam, we read. It was refreshing. We came back Friday night because my middle daughter was coming in Saturday. But it was a really good time. Now, and then following that, of course, Sunday, I thought was an exceptional day. Thank you, Mark, for preaching. You did a fine job, as you always do. And then we had that interview for those who were here or who watched. With Jarvis James, Dr. Jarvis James, pastor of T-Bach Church in inner city Dallas, inner city St. Louis. I felt like he just did a fantastic job of communicating what his heart is and what his ministry is about. I think it's helped us get even more excited about this Missions Lifeline offering that we'll say a little bit more about in a few minutes. And then I had an opportunity. Had you ever met Pastor Jarvis before Sunday?
I hadn't, or his wife and daughter, and they were such a delight. Just the whole family just loves doing ministry together. That was so exciting to hear their heart as well this weekend.
Absolutely. I got a chance, and I've been with Pastor Jarvis 2 or 3 times previously, but I had a chance to have he and his family over for lunch on Sunday. We just had the best time. I don't know if I said this on Sunday, or maybe I've said this in a previous video, but if I haven't, you need to know. Beloved is the name of his daughter, and she set the record, if I'm right, she set the record for the youngest person in the state of Missouri to graduate with a 4-year undergraduate degree. I think she was 17 or 18 years old when she graduated from college. Just an extraordinary family. And then I had another family. Well, we had Pastor Kaleb and Kelsey over for lunch, our missions minister. And then I had a pastor friend here in town, Rod Jones, Pastor Rod Jones, Dr. Rod Jones. He is a pastor of NAC Bible Church. And so, to get the four ministers together with our families, Rod Jones has 3 children, and they were there, and his wife as well. We just had the best time, Mark.
Okay.
We talked about some very serious topics, issues, but we just laughed and joked together. And I look forward to our 3 families, our 4 families, really, with Kaleb's family, spending some time again in the future. It was a good weekend all the way around.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know that each week we spend some time talking about what God's been teaching you with the devotion, but I know you want to do something a little different today. Tell us what's on your heart.
Well, thank you, Mark. I do want to share something a little different, and this is a little more serious, but I think this is a good platform to do this. I wish we had more time on Sunday, and we may take more time to discuss this at a later date. But I want the church to hear from my heart what I believe, what I think, what I believe the Bible has to say about a contemporary issue, and an issue, Mark, that has to do with a ruling 2 weeks ago by the United States Supreme Court. The title of the case was Calvary Chapel versus Sisolak. Calvary Chapel is a rural church, an evangelical church in Nevada, a small church. And then Sisolak, of course, is the governor of Nevada. And the governor had issued, in the middle of this pandemic season, he had issued some instructions, some guidelines. Well, they weren't just guidelines, Mark. They were the law as he issued these. And here's the gist of it. Churches of all sizes, regardless of any precautions that church might take, they were limited full campus, even if they had multiple rooms, to only 50 people on campus at one time for worship. That was his rule. But at the same time, he said that businesses, large and small, including movie theaters, including gyms, exercise gyms, and casinos, could open to 50% of capacity. So, you just run the numbers, 50% capacity, that could be hundreds, or in the case of some of these gigantic casinos, it could be thousands of people. So those were allowed to meet. Churches were, practically just shut down. So I believe, and everybody won't agree with me on this, and that's okay. We can agree and still be friends. But I believe the government has the responsibility to issue instructions to churches, so long as those instructions are reasonable for public safety, and as long as they are generally applicable to all organizations and businesses. I don't believe you can single out a church, but I believe if the government, our elected officials, believe that something is important, it is reasonable, and it is applied to all businesses, all organizations, and it's a public safety matter. I think that's reasonable, and I think churches should abide by that. I'll just give you some examples. Fire suppression systems. Our church may know that we just spent, Mark, I don't know, 6 figures, right? We just spent a ton of money putting a fire suppression system into our church. Nobody call me on the number. I'm not sure that I've got that right. But we put sprinklers in our church. And it was a public safety matter. The city wanted us to do that. They told us to do that. Cost us a great deal of money. But I didn't feel like that was government, forcing us to do something as a church that was unreasonable. They do that for businesses around town. It's a public safety issue. They told us to do it. We did it. The government made us put in some handicapped restrooms. I think that's great. We have to have health inspections for food prep areas. We have to have annual elevator inspections. We have to pay somebody, I think from Houston, to drive up every year to look at our boiler that we use to heat our campus, just to make sure it's safe. So those are all expensive things. They are government regulations, but I'm fine with those. They're applied to all businesses and organizations, and they are reasonable. So that's the first thing I believe. Secondly, I do believe that the church, the press, journalists, and people who are peaceably assembling to redress government grievances, I believe that those people deserve and should receive special accommodation, special latitude. We ought to give special deference to those groups. And here's why that's the case. It's the First Amendment of the Constitution, the First Amendment. So let me just read that amendment. And I'm sure most of our viewers know this, but it's short. Let me read it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So I believe that the government can impose reasonable, generally applicable rules to the church, but I do believe at the same time that we have a special status given to us by the Constitution. So what's the situation in Nevada? So the restrictions, as I said, the governor has ordered that no more than 50 people can gather on the entire campus, no matter how many rooms, no matter the social distancing, only 50 can gather at a church. Major businesses, including the casino industry, limited to 50%. Now, it's worth noting, and I don't want to get into the politics of this, that the Casino Employers Union is one of the most powerful organizations in the state of Nevada. And, of course, the governor would know that as well. So back to the Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court did not settle the case. They weren't even asked to do that. They were asked to intervene on an accelerated schedule to hear the case. Because some of these cases can take years to get through the courts. And of course, in years, it'll be a moot point, hopefully a moot point. So they were asked to hear the case quickly, or at least to suspend the governor's order until the case could be heard. The Supreme Court decided 5-4 to refuse to hear the case. And I think that is a travesty. Now, that's a strong word, Mark, but I believe this is a serious issue. So let me share my heart. I do believe, as I've said, that there will be times when it is prudent for the government to suspend services for public safety. I believe that there may be those times. I welcome the role of wise elected officials to provide reasonable and generally applicable instructions for the purpose of public safety. But what is happening in Nevada is wrong. They are not applying this to all organizations. It is not primarily about public safety. It is about preventing people from worshiping. And the governor of Nevada should be ashamed, and the Supreme Court should be ashamed that they have not intervened in this case. So I've read a lot about this in the last couple of weeks. I've sort of been hot under the collar about it. The best writing about this, while a lot of people have expressed opinions, I mean, there's been an outrage across the country, even marked by some groups that you'd be surprised that would be outraged. The groups that we wouldn't consider friendly to our cause have still been outraged by this. But the best comments have been by the Supreme Court justices themselves, the 4 that dissented. And I know reading something on a show like this is probably not the best thing, but let me just read to you what 2 or 3 of them wrote. Now, you've got to know, and I'm not an expert on these things, but these rulings are usually pretty dry, and they're very polite. They don't really. It's not like watching a cable news show. They're usually a little more reserved. So with that in mind, listen first of all to what Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote. This is a simple case. Under the governor's edict, a 10-screen multiplex may host 500 moviegoers at a time. That's what the governor said. 500 people could go to the movies. A casino, too, may cater to hundreds of people at once, with perhaps 6 people huddled at each craps table and a similar number gathered around every roulette wheel. Large numbers and close quarters are fine in such places, but churches, synagogues, and mosques are banned from admitting more than 50 worshipers, no matter how large the building, no matter how distant the individuals, no matter how many wear face masks, no matter the precautions that have been taken at all. In Nevada, it seems it is better to be in the entertainment business than in religion. Maybe that is nothing new, but the First Amendment, he writes, prohibits such obvious discrimination against the exercise of religion. The world we inhabit today with the pandemic upon us poses unusual challenges. Listen, but there is no world, he writes, in which the Constitution permits Nevada to favor Caesar's palace over Calvary Chapel. And I think that is absolutely on point. Let me read to you what Brett Kavanaugh wrote. Nevada allows restaurants, bars, casinos, and gyms to grant entrance to up to 50% of their total capacity, no matter how many people that may be. For example, a casino with a 500-person occupancy limit may let in up to 250 people. By contrast, the places of worship may only take in a maximum of 50, without exception, regardless of the occupancy cap. So unlike a casino next door, a church with a 500-person capacity will have a limit of 50, not 250. Nevada, he writes, has offered no persuasive justification for that overt discrimination against places of worship. Now listen to this. He writes, the risk of COVID-19 transmission is at least as high at restaurants, bars, casinos, and gyms as it is at a religious service. Indeed, he writes, people congregating in restaurants, bars, casinos, and gyms often linger at least as long as they do at religious services. And given the safety measures that Calvary Chapel and other places of worship are following, including social distancing, mask wearing, and certain additional voluntary measures, it is evident that people interact with others at restaurants, bars, casinos, and gyms at least as closely as they do at religious services. And then I'm going to move on, I promise, Mark. But let me read to you what Samuel Alito wrote, also Associate Justice. The Constitution guarantees the free exercise of religion. It says nothing about the freedom to play craps or blackjack, to feed tokens into a slot machine, or to engage in any other game of chance. But the governor of Nevada apparently has different priorities. Alito also pointed out, if you read his longer dissent, that there was a big protest a few weeks ago in Nevada that, of course, violated the 50-person limit. There was no social distancing. So what did the governor do? Not only did he not stop the protest, he participated in it and took pictures and posted them on social media of being a part of the protest. Yet he has threatened these churches that might have 51 people in attendance. So what should our attitude be? I do have another quote I've got to read. So this is from Henry Olson, editorial writer. And this is in the Washington Post, not the Washington Times, if you know your newspapers, but the Washington Post. This is shocking. But listen to what he wrote. A Nevadian who worships Lady Luck, therefore, is treated more favorably than one who worships God. So what should our attitude be? Well, we should be thankful when we have elected officials who uphold the Constitution, who believe in the Constitution, the First Amendment, and every other amendment, and uphold that. Let us be thankful for those people. Whatever party they are, let us be thankful. Mm-hmm. We should consider carefully what kind of justices a presidential candidate would nominate, and what kind of justices a senator, a U.S. senator, would confirm. So when we're voting for president and when we're voting for senator, we are indirectly voting for who these people are going to be, who are going to make the decisions like this terrible decision that our Supreme Court recently made. And we should pray for the wisdom, and Mark, we should pray for the backbone of our government officials, for our president, our governors, our local officials, but also for our Supreme Court justices. This is serious. We could differ on a lot of things, healthcare and taxation and a lot of things, and be okay. But this is a governor forbidding churches really from worshiping, not for safety. If this were a safety issue, you wouldn't have 500 people going to the movies. But just because of his personal animus, I suppose. And maybe that's too harsh, but he can explain it differently if he has a better explanation. But that's the way the way I see it.
Just never in a million years would I have thought that we would be in a place like this. It's such a different time, isn't it? It really is. We need to pray hard.
Yeah, it really is. Really is.
Noel, I know you're excited about the upcoming sermon that you're preparing. Can you give us a little insight of what's coming up?
Well, so, what's the saying? To jump from the frying pan to the fire. I really feel like the Lord has given me a special message this Sunday. We're going to be focused on the last 6 verses, I think, of Hebrews chapter 11. This is the roll call of faith. A lot of people call this chapter. It's great. Of course, every chapter of Scripture is great, but this is one that just stands out. But there's an interesting twist in the last few verses. And I think in this interesting twist, we really see how we can measure our faith. And Mark, I have concerns. I have some real concerns that in the midst of this pandemic, this season, I believe that some weak faith, or maybe even some false faith that people have embraced, has been revealed. The pandemic hasn't taken away anybody's faith, but it may have revealed some weaknesses there. So we're going to talk about that. It'll be a difficult message to preach, but I think it's important, and I'm looking forward to just having opportunity to share that.
Yeah, well, and thank you for letting us know, because we can pray. We can be praying for you as you prepare, that God will give you the boldness and give you the wisdom of how to present the message that He's placed on your heart. So I'm so excited that we have that opportunity to be in partnership with you this week. Just 2 weeks away before our new schedule change. Isn't that right? August 16th.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we don't have a lot of time right now. Hopefully everybody received a letter in the mail with some of these target dates for the next few weeks. But August the 16th, Sunday, August the 16th, 2 Sundays away, we'll be in our new schedule, worship at 10:15. There will be celebration worship, our traditional worship in the sanctuary, traditional blended orchestra, choir, the whole works. And then in our Christian Life Center, we'll have our summit worship. Will be our contemporary service. We're very much looking forward to that. Both of those will happen at 10:15, so I hope people will join us. Just a quick note, we talked about this last week, but Sunday school does not start on the 16th of August. It starts on the 13th of September, and we'll have more information about that as it gets a little closer.
Right, but the 16th is a really big day. Not only is it a change of services, we're also having a meeting for all of our Sunday school teachers and leaders on that day at 9 o'clock. They should have gotten something in the mail about that either this beginning this week. Also, an email went out yesterday. But also, we've got our Lifeline Missions offering. I'm so excited about. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I do want to talk about that, but let me just share something, and you may not know this. I know you were been out of town some this week, but I got a call. I think I mentioned this last week on the show, right at the end, so that's why I want to give an update. I got a call on Friday. Somebody asked what last year was our Vacation Bible School offering. The kids give every day, and nickels and dimes and a few dollars, but it adds up, and that money is used for a big missions project that the kids do, Operation Christmas Child. And so we didn't have Vacation Bible School this year. We didn't collect the offering. So this person asked, what was it last year? And I said, it's $3,000. It was $3,000 last year. And he said, well, make it $5,000 this year. I'll have you a check on Sunday. And so I just thought that was an encouragement to me, and I believe to Melanie and the children's ministry, and just, I mean, that's not a part of Missions Lifeline, but it really in spirit is, right? It's money given, sacrificial, generous gift given, so that the work of God can go forward. So in that spirit, we've got this Missions Lifeline offering. Largest offering I believe that our church has ever collected for missions. Our goal is $100,000. We're going to distribute this to 9 of our missions partners. We have a couple of dozen organizations we partner with. We support financially and with prayer, and we send people. but there are 9 of those that have an urgent need right now. And so we're going to take this offering in 2 weeks, August the 16th, and we're going to give it to those 9 partners. Just quick, why should we do it? Why are we doing this? Number one, I really believe God wants us to be a part of the answer to the prayers that these missionaries are praying. So these 9 mission partners, they're praying, Lord, help us, send us some provision, some resources so our ministry can continue. They're in a crisis, some of them. And I believe God's going to answer that prayer. And the way he's going to answer it is he's going to answer it through us, through me and my family. We're going to be a part of this. And so that's the first reason we're doing this. Also, because we just trust the Lord to take care of us. I know, I've got some pastor friends. What are you doing, Pastor? Giving away $100,000 in the midst of a pandemic? Maybe you ought to hold on to that money. Well, I just trust the Lord's going to take care of us here. He always has. He always will. Now's not the time to be stingy, selfish. Now's the time to be generous. And then finally, we love our missions partners. And some of them have been partners for years, for decades, perhaps. When I was spending time this last Sunday at lunch in my home with Pastor Jarvis James, I just thought, I thought about some of the hardships that his ministry, his work is facing. And now is not the time for us to tell these people no. Now's the time for us to show these people that we truly love them and support their work. So one Sunday, you can do it before or after, of course, if people want to mail it or bring it by the office. You can do it electronically. We will actually collect an offering on the 16th, which is not something we've done recently. We have a socially distanced way of doing that. But a one-time offering. My prayer is $100,000 for the glory of God. And I'm really looking forward to it.
We enjoyed hearing from Kaleb last week about some of our mission partners. I know, do we have another word from him this week as well?
Yeah, we do. A few days ago, I sat down with him and talked to him about some of the partners that we're not supporting in this missions offering. So 9 we are, a dozen or more that we're not. And the reason we're not is because they don't have an urgent need, but they're still important and we still want to have a chance to talk about them. And so I asked Kaleb, our missions pastor, just to go through a list and give us a little update. Let's watch that video together. Well, Kaleb, welcome back to our pastor's show. Last week we talked about some of the mission partners that are involved in our Missions Lifeline offering, but we said that there were some partners, very important partners to us, doing some very important work for the Lord, but they are not a part of our special offering because they don't have a specific urgent financial need. But I did want us to have a chance to mention those and for people to hear a little bit about them. So if you don't mind, let's start with our local partners. Run through a list of who we're partnered with right here in Nacogdoches.
Yeah, absolutely. We got so many great partners here in the community of Nacogdoches, and these we continue to support on a regular basis outside of the special giving. But some of those are our Hope Food Bank here in town, the Godtel Homeless Ministry, Love Inc., the Glory Gang Children's Ministry, the SFA BSM and its staff, specifically Hunter and Mackenzie Fountain as they serve there, the Jail Ministry led up by Tip Harris, our Backpack Food Ministry operating right here out of our church, as well as the Solid Foundation Association, which does after-school mentoring and programming for our community. And so many great ministries, and in checking in and reaching out to them, and even many of our members working alongside them in this season. Mm-hmm. Their needs are present, but they're not financial needs. And so we have some volunteer opportunities. I'd love to plug anybody in that's interested. But I just want to highlight a couple of those ministries as well with a little more detail. Specifically Love Inc. Love Inc. has such a great network of supporters and volunteers, and so their work has continued, but it's not just continued. They have added new ministry programs to do work with the elderly, have given nearly $100,000 in different kinds of temporary assistance and working with employers. So many exciting things. Also, our backpack food ministry right here within our church. One of the things I want to challenge our church to do is to begin to pray not only for our backpack food ministry, but for all of the ministries that are happening. The coronavirus changes things. It doesn't cancel our ministries. And so we're excited for potential of changing the way we do backpack ministry to get a direct access to families rather than using the connection through the school. We want to maintain great relationships with our local schools, but what a blessing it would be to be able to take the gospel directly to and minister to the families that are in need during this time. So I ask that you would join us in praying and going and giving of your time as we continue to support our local partners.
And the backpack ministry is just a great example of how, to use a cliche, COVID has closed some doors but maybe opened some others. And so while that ministry, in one sense, may be hampered by whatever the situation may be in the schools in the coming months, may give us an opportunity to have, like you said, a more direct relationship with some of these needy families and to have a gospel ministry to them. So, it's exciting to see what the Lord's doing even in this hard time. So North American partners, talk about some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So our North American partners, really with the exception of one, represent families. They are families connected to our church, families even within our church. Those partners are Matthew and April Young, who serve in Moscow, Idaho, just off of eastern Washington, with Resonate Church, Pawnee Woods Encampment, just south of us in Wood Lake, which we use throughout the years. Joe and Donna Ryder, who serve with Wycliffe headquarters in North Carolina. Ben and Kendra Puller, who serve on staff at Gospel for Asia, just north of us in Wills Point, Texas. Thomas and Shelby Magnuson, who serve with Turning Point Church in Olympia, Washington. All partners that are doing well. The Lord has continued to provide financially for them. Ministry is continuing. New seasons of ministry, much like we see here, is continuing to take place. I do want to just highlight just the reality that even in an unusual season, God's people are continuing to be generous. For the writers, as they've transitioned from positions in Africa and Cameroon with Wycliffe translators, this year has been about fundraising and transitioning to the headquarters in North Carolina, and they've been fully funded for their positions and have started the work.
That's great.
There. Likewise, Matthew and April Young have seen an increase in support for Resonate, the larger church organization that they work with, as well as for their specific family. They've had evidence that specifically the stimulus funds that families and businesses have received, they've passed that blessing on to Resonate and to the Youngs. And so God is continuing to provide for them through generous donors. And so lots of great things happening with our North American partners.
Yeah, that's a good story. Great story. And then finally, international partners. We don't want to leave them out. Talk about some of our international partners that are not really a part of our Lifeline giving formula, but they're still supported by our church.
Yeah, absolutely. Those Lifeline partners are some in really, really unusual situations and some crisis. The rest of our international partners that we support and are tied to have been connected to the International Mission Board, and actually all three of those partners are in Texas with us right now. And so those families are Terry and Twyla Bell, Drew and Emily Young, as well as Kevin and Lauren Glenn, who two of them serve in different parts of Africa, and the Glenns serve in Southeast Asia. And so their support is still there. The IMB is still doing they're on reassignment. Their ministry doesn't stop because they're in a different place. And so continue to pray for each one of them. Continue to pray for this transition season. A lot of them, really all three of them, are on hold just waiting for the news of when they can return. We see this as their home, but really their home is on the field where their belongings and their ministries and their churches are. And so they're doing well and here with us.
Well, I appreciate that, Kaleb. It's good to hear about all the partners that we have, and it's it's a real privilege our church, the ministry of our church, the people of our church are able to be a part not just of what's happening here in Nacogdoches, but literally around the world in some very specific ways. And I appreciate your leadership and the missions team and just all the ways you help us to make these connections and then keep us updated so we'll know how we can pray and how we can support. Missions offering just a little ways away. We'll talk more about that, but thanks for joining us for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So I hope that video was helpful to people, and I hope everybody will pray for all of our partners, especially in these difficult days.
Well, Pastor, let's end on a light note. Why don't you take your phone out and why don't you look at the last couple of photos that you've taken and share with us one that is interesting or just has a good story behind it.
Well, I was never really a picture person before we all started carrying cameras in our pockets every single day. But now I take a picture of everything. I take a picture of my lunch every day, not every day, but I don't know. I take a lot of pictures. And so just looking over my last 10 pictures, and I'll throw this up on the screen. I think the most interesting one is a slice of cheesecake I had last week. This is while I was on my anniversary trip. Look at this, Mark. It is a jalapeno cheesecake. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I know I don't have the Texas pronunciation of jalapeno down, but that's it. There is a giant jalapeno on top of a cheesecake, and it was interesting to say the least. How about you? You got an interesting picture everybody can see?
Was it good? Man, I don't take a lot of pictures. Meredith is kind of our picture person, but in my camera, I do have a couple of pictures, and one is of Sophie when I brought her to work one day. So we were struggling with that, and so I brought her to work, and she decided to take over, and so you'll see that picture of her taking over my desk.
Well, one day we'll have to talk about your relationship with your dog. I think it would take an entire show, but I think it would be interesting to our people and therapeutic. We'll have to bring Meredith on, so we can both of you and the dog, I guess,
sure. Well, it's been a great show. I've learned a lot. Noel, I'm so thankful. I'm sure everyone else that has been listening has learned, and we've been challenged. I think it's important for us to remember to be good citizens and to pray for those that are in leadership. So thank you for that. And we're going to be praying for you this week as well as you prepare for the sermon. And we're looking forward to what God is going to be teaching us through Hebrews and through what he's been doing with you. So next week, don't forget, come back, tell people about the Pastor Show. We'd love to see you then. Until then, hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.